We're talking about today knowing your Bible, right? Knowing your Bible. So in the Old Testament, you got 17 books of prophecy. Who were these prophets prophesying to? Were they prophesying to you? Were they prophesying to a specific group of people? So when you look at these 17 books of prophecy, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Lamentations, you're looking at Ezekiel, Daniel, Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi. When you look at these books, you got to ask the question, who were these prophets writing to? They weren't writing to you. If I was to show you who these prophets were writing to, you'll be amazed. And do you know people will grab scriptures out of those books and apply it to themselves? So when you look at the pre-exile prophets, Israel was once a free nation. And there were prophets who was prophesying to Israel, warning them that if they don't stop what they're doing, they're going to be put into captivity, into bondage. Jonah didn't prophesy to Israel. Jonah is the oldest book of prophecy. And Jonah, you know who God sent Jonah to? God sent Jonah to Nineveh, to a wicked Gentile nation. An Israelite to go preach to a Gentile nation. And Jonah fought with everything he could. A big fish swallowed him up until he changed his mind and went and did what God told him to do. So Jonah, whether people realize it or not, is the oldest book of prophecy in the Old Testament. And it was written 862 years before Christ. And it was written to a Gentile nation called Nineveh. But do you know most people don't know that? Joel was written to the southern nation of Judah. People look at the book, they think it's chronological in order. It's not in order. Hosea is the third oldest book of prophecy in your Bible. Hosea, he wrote to the northern kingdom of Israel. How many know Israel was split into two nations? You had the southern kingdom and you had the northern kingdom. And so there were prophets that was assigned to preach to the northern kingdom of Israel, and then there were prophets to preach to the southern kingdom of Israel. Amos was a northern prophet. Micah, he was unique. They call him a minor prophet. Micah preached to the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. He was one of the unique ones. But he wasn't preaching to us. He wasn't preaching to Gentiles. He was preaching to who? Jews. Israelites. Isaiah. Now, I love the book of Isaiah because the book of Isaiah has many prophecies of the coming Messiah. When you look at Isaiah, it says, for unto us a child is born, for unto us a son is given. In the book of 53, it says, he will be wounded for our transgression, bruised for our iniquity, chastisement of our peace shall be upon him. And by his stripes, what? We are what? Healed. He was writing his writing of the coming Messiah. And we thank God for the coming Messiah. But when you look at Isaiah was writing to Judah, and he was writing to the capital. This is pre-exile. Before Israel went into bondage, he was writing to Jerusalem. And he was writing to Judah in the southern kingdom. Jerusalem was in the southern kingdom. No, when you start talking about knowing your Bible, so when we read our Bible, everything is not for you. It's awesome to know your Bible, but also it's awesome to know that everything in the Bible is not written to you. It's written for you, and you must learn your Bible. Because if you're not careful, you will start applying things to your life that you're not supposed to apply to your life. This is where it can get dangerous. And this is where a lot of false teaching comes from. And so when you look at guys like Nahum, he was unique because Nahum, he wrote to Nineveh, and he wrote to the Assyrian nation, which was a pagan nation. When you look at guys like Zephaniah, he wrote to Judah, the southern kingdom. When you look at Habakkuk, he wrote to Judah, the southern kingdom. But then, when Israel went into captivity because of their disobedience, God rose up 4 prophets to preach to them while they were in exile. And one of them, he was one who was warning them. The very last prophet was warning them, saying, y'all better turn. Y'all better turn back to God. And his name was Jeremiah. And they called him the weeping prophet. Why did they call Jeremiah the weeping prophet? Because in the midst of all of, they beat Jeremiah. They threw Jeremiah in wells. They put him in prison. And why? Because he was warning Israel to turn back to God, and they would not turn back to God. He preached to Israel before they went into captivity, and he preached to them while they were in captivity. And then God rose up another man while they were in captivity called Daniel. Daniel was a prophet while Israel was in Babylonian captivity. So when y'all hear the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego thrown in the fiery furnace, and when you hear those stories about those 3 in Daniel, those 3, when Daniel is prophesying, he's prophesying for Israel who was in captivity. So there was 4 prophets. Jeremiah, Daniel, there was another one, Ezekiel, and Obadiah. While Israel was in captivity, while they were in exile, God was speaking to these prophets, to the children of Israel, encouraging them to let them know, in 70 years, I'm bringing you out of captivity. And what did God do? In 70 years, he brought them out of captivity. And then when they got out of captivity, God used 3 more prophets, the post-exile prophets, to preach to who? Israel. So when you look at most of the Old Testament is not written to us. It's written for us. Why is it written for us? For our learning. A lot of foreshadows, a lot of types, right? You can learn a lot about Jesus by reading the Old Testament, the whole sacrificial system. In the book of the law, the book of Leviticus, you can learn exactly how the priesthood works. And Jesus is now our high priest by studying the book of Leviticus. So knowing your Bible is very, very important. And so Haggai, he preached to the returning remnant of Jews that was returning back to Israel. It was a small remnant at first, to preach to those Jews returning back out of exile. Zechariah preached to Judah and those exiles in Jerusalem. And the last book of the Old Testament is one of my favorite books, and it's called the book of Malachi. He also wrote to the remnant of Jews in Judah returning out of captivity. And then there was what? After Malachi, how many years of silence was there? God didn't raise up no more prophets. 400 years. After Malachi, there was 400 years God did not speak to Israel. 400 years went by. No prophecy.